Hey guys, it's Deja, and this is Petty Talks with Deja. So I'm gonna be reviewing the Real Housewives of Atlanta, episode 3. Because I just wanted to give my thoughts on the episode. So overall, I honestly feel like this season it is actually pretty good. I know a lot of people are saying that they want Kenya back, they want Nene back, and I honestly can do without them because the old Nene and the old Kenya that we used to or we were used to, they are long gone. Like we even see with Kenya. I mean, I do think if they brought her back, she wouldn't be a bad addition to the girls. But I do think that she, because of her financial situation, she would have way too much to prove, and we wouldn't get that effortless Kenya that we got before. We would get this girl who's just trying to get into it because, she just need money. But that's a whole nother rant. So my thoughts on this episode, I would honestly give it, the episode, if I had to give it a rating, maybe like a 8. A B plus plus, because the episode, it wasn't bad or anything. It's just that it wasn't it just wasn't all that. Like, it was kind of given like a filler episode, but for it to be a filler episode, it wasn't that bad. So to start the episode, it was K Michelle. She was in the hospital and she was with her husband this time. I was a little confused because the doctor, and I thought that maybe they were in Tennessee, but I know that Tennessee is only like a maybe 2-hour drive from Atlanta, maybe like an hour and a half if you push it. So I was like, you know what? She probably left the awards show that she went to and then came down to Atlanta, and then that's when we saw her. Because I was like, she looked like she was in a different area, but that was something that I was just thinking of. But she was in the hospital. She had just had some kind of surgery because before she had like a puncture or something with her butt implant, and it caused her to like leak fluid all over her dress that she was wearing to the award show. And it was just her and her husband. And, it was really nice that he was there. I mean, that is her husband, but it was nice that he was there. She got her glam done. She was like, I got stuff to do. And I'm like, girl, what you got to do? Like, honestly, girl, you got to go film for the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Like, I know that they cutting that check, but I'm just saying, like, you didn't really have to do that. Like, I definitely think they would have understood if you did not, go to the scene with the girls, because she left from being in the hospital, and she went to go to the nail salon with Phaedra, Portia, Cynthia. But I think that was the next. No, that was the third scene. So after we see K Michelle get all glammed up and leave the hospital, we then see Drew going over to Angela's house, and I don't know what the hell Drew was wearing. Like, Angela said something, and she was like, "Oh, you getting all dolled up? You don't wear that to go play basketball." And I'm like, yeah, well, we know Drew's fashions aren't always the best. But as soon as they got over there to that couch, Drew was looking at that food like, what the hell? She said, "Is this the old chicken from Kelly's restaurant opening?" That chicken looks so damn dry. It looked like some old lemon pepper wings from American Deli. And then she had some grapes. And I'm just like, you in this big, beautiful house. And I get it. I do honestly get it, where it's just like, girl, I'm not finna, every time I have somebody come over my house for one of these scenes that we shooting for like X amount of hours or like minutes, like we not really gonna eat, and it's just gonna be like a waste of food. So why am I even buying this? And we know everybody on the show is having money issues. So it's just kind of like, you know what? I'm not gonna do all this. Like, girl, I'm gonna give you a single serving of grapes and wings. But it was just like, girl, just have wine. You know what I mean? Like, just have 3 bottles of wine lined up. Like, we finna finish each and every one of these bottles. And as we keep talking, we'll keep on throwing shade. But don't have no dry food there, But they start talking, and Angela is talking about Amari because her daughter was there, and she was going off to college, and her daughter had got married last season, and she didn't tell her. She had just told like Angela's mom and Angela's sisters, and Angela's mom, who passed away, had actually told Angela that her daughter got married. So Angela was kind of like, she's just happy that her daughter's there, and they showed the flashbacks of Angela being like, it's really messed up that you did not tell me you got married. Which, it's good that they, reunited or whatever. And then Drew, of course, starts talking about how she's booked and she's busy and she has all this money or not all this money, but that's what pays the bills, the acting. And I'm like, Drew, you must not have that many bills. Because we saw from the court documents that you only are making $12,000. And I'm not going to say only, because if I was making $12,000 a month, with my current, what I have to pay, then, it would be good. But for Drew to be a housewife, to live in this very big house that she lives in, and to like have this lifestyle that she has, $12,000 ain't cutting it. And we see that, with everything that's going on. Like, Ralph is the primary breadwinner, which is kind of crazy because they tried to make it seem like Ralph was eating off of her, and we learned that she was eating off of Ralph. But for her to be sitting in this show acting like, yeah, I'm just a primary breadwinner, and I do this, and I am flying here and I'm flying there, and I get off a plane and I go on set and I get in glam, and I'm like, Drew, shut up. Why you sitting over that line? Okay, after you get off a set, do you go over to your gym that you was doing? Okay, because remember that she had that damn gym, and it's like, girl, you don't even have that gym. You were just a face of the gym. But we all know Drew to be a liar. And then she starts throwing shade because they start talking about Angela's houses. And she starts throwing shade at Angela a little bit. And she was like, yeah, my girl, she was going through bankruptcy. If you can't, if you fail once, get up and try again, which definitely is the truth. But I just don't understand why she was throwing shade at her when you're going through your own stuff. And then Angela, she was just kind of talking about it, and she was just talking about how she's getting like the new houses and everything. It did seem a little weird because like as they were talking about it, Drew was talking about like mommy guilt, which is something that a lot of them say on the show, like through different reality TV shows. I was like mommy guilt and, having like these really successful careers and like still wanting to be the best parent you can, which is anybody can understand that. But it kind of seemed like Angela just started talking about herself and started talking about the houses. I'm like, girl, them houses ain't that important, You already went bankrupt on them. But I don't know, the conversation, it seemed friendly, but it also seemed like, I don't want to say hostile. I don't know. But honestly, I will say that they don't seem like they're real friends. I mean, and we know that. Like, they just really seem like they're in an alliance. I think last year they were really trying to get to know each other. But Drew kind of seems childish, whereas Angela seems like a mature adult who can be very shady and backhanded. But she is a mature adult. And I don't think that Drew is the same mature adult as her. I think she's only friends with Drew out of loyalty because of this show. But if the show were to go off, her and Drew would not hang out. But, that's neither here nor there. And so the next thing that happened was the nail salon. So K. Michelle, she leaves the hospital with her husband, and she goes to the nail salon with Portia, Phaedra, and Cynthia. And her husband is, he drives her there, and he's like, I'll be here to pick you up. But he's like, you really should go home. Which, girl, you definitely should go home. You literally just got at the hospital, just got out of surgery. Like, girl, go home. And I forgot to say that K. Michelle was saying when she was in the hospital that Shamia came to see her, which is really cool. Like, Shamia seems very annoying on the show, but she does seem like she is a good person to have in your life, like good friend, good, whatever you want to call her, just in your life as a person, because she seems like she really does show up. Like, if you have like a little Girl Scout, little corner bakery or whatever, like, she's gonna show up and she's gonna give you, $100. Like, she just really seems like a good person to have in your life. Some other people like Portia, I don't know, but Shamia does seem like a good person. But she showed up, Phaedra sent flowers, and then the way she said it, I didn't catch it initially, but with the going on later in the show, you kind of catch it. But she said that Portia was basically calling to see if she could come, and I'm like, and when she first said it, I was like, wait, so Shamia showed up. You don't really know Shamia, but Portia was calling to see if she could come. Sound like she didn't really want to come, if I'm being honest. But, we'll get into that later. But as they're at the nail salon, they're, just kind of talking and everything, talking about Hot Pockets. And, of course, Cynthia didn't know what that was. I'm like, Cynthia, you be sleeping with too many men now, though. I'm not shaming Cynthia, but I'm just saying, like, Cynthia, come on, girl. Like, come on, girl. But they kind of asked K. Michelle what happened, and K. Michelle was saying, She told them what happened, but as she's telling the girls what happened with her, butt deflating and like liquid coming out of it, Portia keeps cutting her off, and Portia keeps saying like, did you have a miscarriage? And when she said that, I literally just paused the show, and I was watching on my phone, so I just put my phone on my chest and I just closed my eyes, because I was like, did she really just say that? And I was just like, Portia, like, why would you say that? That's not my friend. I don't know her in real life. But I'm just saying, I just don't think, she just seems like she speaks before she talks, which we know Portia to do a lot. So it's not so out of the blue knowing, thinking that she would do that. But I was just like, girl, why? But in the scene, K. Michelle, she just kind of said, right, that's what I thought. Because K. Michelle, she's just explaining that I had all this, like, liquid on me, and on this, like, it was my dress, the bottom of my dress was wet. And Portia said, oh, did you have a miscarriage? And K. Michelle was like, oh, that's what I thought. So it seemed friendly, And then she just got done explaining. And then Portia said, oh, well, yeah, I had a miscarriage. And, Portia, she started kind of making this about herself. And she was saying, yeah, like I kind of had the same thing where when I had my boob job, a stitch popped out and a piece of my boob was hanging. Something that she said. I was like, oh, okay. Well, anyways. But during the actual scene, K. Michelle seemed fine. But in the confessionals, K. Michelle was kind of like, why would you say that? I can see kind of both sides. I can see it where when you are hearing something that happened to somebody and your brain is processing it, if you're a type of person that talks a lot, because she was like, Portia was cutting K. Michelle off. If you are a person that just talks a lot, then it's definitely on, it's just one of those things where it's just like, you just kind of processing it verbally, which, you can just kind of forgive somebody for that and just let them know so that they don't keep doing it. But also, K. Michelle was saying, like, I've already had this conversation with Portia. So, about what happened. We don't really know if she had, like, a full conversation where she said, like, yeah, my butt deflated, whatever. But K. Michelle was kind of coming from the stance of, I've already told you that this happened. So, why are you questioning if I had a miscarriage or whatever? Like, she was just kind of painting it like Portia was being insensitive. I do think that Portia saying that was insensitive, but I don't necessarily know fully. I know I'm going to have to be honest that Portia was being intentionally insensitive. And I don't know. It was just like K. Michelle said something that kind of stuck out to me. She said, I don't know how am I supposed to argue with you girls if you're being so nice to me. And that just kind of stuck to me as like, K. Michelle knows that part of Housewives is arguing with the girls, bring a little bit of drama, then you make up and you have fun and whatever, or maybe you don't make up and you keep it on to season, whatever. But I'm just like, argue with them if you want to argue with them. Don't argue with them if you don't have anything to argue with them about. It just kind of seemed like a little bit of a lot to me, honestly. And it was just kind of like, Phaedra didn't do nothing this episode. But we'll get into that later. But K. Michelle, she just, she was just doing a lot. But I do understand where she was coming from. I do understand where Portia might have been coming from, when she said it. But she was a little bit wrong. She just didn't mean anything ill by it. But anyways, so Shamia, and the next scene was Shamia and Gerald walking, and Shamia was kind of talking about the rum situation. She was also in her confessional talking to us about how Gerald kind of like shut it down and Gerald would not be a part of it anymore, which, a round of applause for Gerald, because we see Gerald talking to the people in Grenada and he's like asking all of these business questions of like, how much is y'all gonna be selling it for? How much her profit gonna be? How much it's going to get it to America? Like all these like, logistic questions about how everything is gonna work. And she's just over there like, and I could kind of get, from me being a child, I get what she's saying, where whenever your parent is kind of like, you know, you already have something figured out, or like you're like, I'm gonna do this, and then you have like your parent or somebody else just kind of come in and they're asking like all these questions that need to be asked, but you're kind of too scared to ask it because you're so excited about it. I understand where Shamia was coming from, but also Shamia has a resource that not everybody else has. You literally have a man who has been very, very successful in business. Not a rum company. It would be great if it was a rum company for her sakes. But you have somebody that's been very successful in business. Honestly, I would listen to him. The questions that he was asking, while I understand why she was annoyed that he was asking them, I would be like, you know what, this is something I need to worry about. You know, like, can you get me those numbers? Everything that he asked for. Like, and Gerald kind of left the conversation a little bit sour, but something that, you know, a lot of people have to realize that, you know, even me having like a job, obviously, had to realize that you can't try and have every conversation and it end up nice. Like, obviously don't go in there just rude to people, you know, mean mugging. But, you know, sometimes you do have to be stern in your word and just know like, hey, this is it. I'm asking these questions. I need an answer, you know, whatever. So him asking those questions, it wasn't, you know, while it may have seemed like he was being very stern and hard, I don't think that he was. I think that he was really just saying like, are y'all trying to mess over my wife? Like, you know, this is, you know, he was asking real good questions about business, but she decided to move ahead. And then we see her and Gerald walking with their youngest daughter down a hill. And she was saying that she wanted to retire him, which is something like, I just kind of like, ugh. I'm just like, girl, why are you trying to retire a millionaire? Okay, a multi-millionaire. Probably got like 40, I don't know what their net worth is, but he's definitely a millionaire, okay? And if I've gone through the Atlanta airport, okay? And if he's putting the HVACs in that huge airport that was once the busiest airport in the world, I think now it's the second, girl, you ain't got to retire him. One of them things break, he making hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million, like, to come and repair it. So this idea that I need to retire you, no, you need to retire me, girl. Let me tell you something. If I had him, I wouldn't be trying to retire nobody. Like, I would be in the backyard in his I don't know, doing gardens. Okay, I would be taking care of the girls. I would be doing something. Like, I wouldn't be trying to worry about retiring a millionaire. Why are you retiring a millionaire? Even when she said he didn't even say anything, because it's just so asinine. Like, girl, like, you don't live to make money. You know what I mean? Like, you live to live. But Shamia just kind of seems like that type of person where it's just like, I just have to like retire him and I have to make money and I have to do all this, which, I mean, you know, you just gotta respect her like drive and her work ethic. But I think that is kind of asinine to want to retire a already made millionaire. What are we doing, Shamia? And then, so the next scene was K. Michelle, Pinky, and Cynthia. So this is where we see Cynthia kind of asking K. Michelle about K. Michelle's tweets. I remember when the tweets came out. K. Michelle, she was saying like bimbo. She was saying bimbo. She was saying activated. She was just putting out these tweets and she wasn't putting a name on it. Or Monique say a name or leave it on the playground. K. Michelle left it on the playground. We all thought it was Drew that she was calling a bimbo. I definitely thought it was Drew, you know, because of the two singers. And then there was like people saying that there was an issue with her and Drew from the cast and stuff. And I think she does have an issue with Drew later on. But it turns out, because Cynthia, she's like, wait, I didn't think I had an issue with K. Michelle. So, you know, what is the problem? Like, was it about me? And K. Michelle's like, no, it was about Portia. And she explains that when Portia was, you know, when she was telling about what happened with her butt, what K. Michelle was saying about what happened with her butt, Portia was kind of being a little aloof, and she was just like asking questions about if it was a miscarriage or not. And Cynthia was like, you know, I can see how you can feel it was insensitive, but I know Portia's heart, and I don't feel like Portia was being rude or disrespectful in that moment. I really feel like, you know, she just kind of is that type of person who says things without thinking. 265, you know, Underground Railroad. So it's just like, yeah, like how they get the trains out? No, it wasn't a train. Like, that's that girl, Portia. So I think Cynthia was like having flashbacks, like, no, Portia, she kind of is, a little bit slow, you know. But she didn't, and thankfully, that's why I really do like Cynthia being a friend of on this show, because she did not dismiss K Michelle's feelings. She said, I understand how you're feeling, but honestly, from my experience, I don't think that she was being, rude or anything. I just really think that she was being just like, she just was talking without thinking. And I just like that from Cynthia. Like, Cynthia really is a really good friend of. She knows how to navigate with people without getting in an argument herself. Knock on wood that she don't argue with people on the show. But she just seems like she knows how to navigate through different friendships, different personalities and everything. Having been on the show herself, while also, making sure that she's actually giving something when she comes in the scenes. So then Pinky, she shows up and they start talking about, like different stuff. Cynthia finds out that K Michelle and Pinky are sorority sisters, but I think that they went to different colleges. So they're just like, different college, same sorority kind of sisters like that. And they actually like really, really know each other. And then the shade starts. So K Michelle asks Cynthia, so does Phaedra just sit there and just talk? I mean, she just sit there and laugh? And does she ever say anything? And when I tell you that for the longest, and I was actually talking to a friend, and they were saying like, well, Phaedra doesn't really need to talk because Phaedra, no. I don't care how long Phaedra's been on reality TV. I don't care how long Phaedra was on Real Housewives of Atlanta. If Phaedra is going to be on this show, she's got to talk. She's got to add something. We can't just keep seeing scenes with her and her children. This is not the Phaedra show. This is not, sideline. Now we're going to have a little segment where Phaedra is just with her children. I do like seeing that. But honestly, it's the same with Phaedra when she was on Married to Medicine. Phaedra did not want to give anything. The girls on Married to Medicine said repeatedly, Phaedra, you're not giving anything, sweetie. Snap, snap, you're not giving nothing. And Phaedra was kind of like, oh, well, I'm not giving you nothing. And then eventually she came over to Real Housewives of Atlanta. Her first season over here, or first season back over here, she gave absolutely nothing. She gave a little one too, I will say that. But overall, she just didn't give anything. People were like, oh, well, she was only there for a couple of weeks filming. All right. Y'all giving her a pass for that. We'll give her a pass. But then we see that Phaedra came back on this season. And guess what? Again, Phaedra is giving nothing. We are 3 episodes in, and I swear to God, we have not seen Phaedra say anything in any of the group scenes. We have not seen Phaedra say anything in any of the group scenes. It's really getting frustrating because why is Phaedra not actually talking? Like, why is Phaedra not engaging? It's frustrating. So K Michelle, she made a joke on it, but she was like, damn, do Phaedra say anything? And they flashed back to like her and Phaedra laughing, but Phaedra not actually saying anything. And then Pinky, she says, oh, well, Phaedra, she eats dead people. Excuse me, Pinky, what do you mean by that? But Pinky, she was just saying like, so Shamia told Pinky, at another time that Phaedra was saying that Pinky eats meat, like meat. And because Pinky is a vegan, and she was saying, no, she's trying to ruin my business. So Pinky decided to take it up upon herself and, create a lie and say that Phaedra eats dead people. A very weird thing to make up and to say. I don't understand why she did it. It was honestly funny. I'm not even gonna lie, it was kind of funny. Solely because Phaedra isn't bringing anything. Like, I'm just like, girl, who gives a damn? But it was such a weird and disrespectful thing to say. Like, could you imagine having your family members buried by Phaedra and then just being like, was she cutting out Big Mama and Big Daddy arm and like saving it in her damn personal refrigerator, microwaving it up? Like, that's where my mind went. Like, could you imagine because people do weird stuff. And I don't think that Phaedra would ever do that. But, like, you can get at Phaedra, but just use something else. That was just so uncalled for and weird. And it just shows us the type of character that Pinky is, like the scene was funny. I liked the way that Cynthia, like weaved through it and did the scene, but I was just like, what the heck? But anyways, so I honestly forgot when it happened, but Pinky, she met with attorney and she's going to be filing bankruptcy, and she's not telling her husband. She's filing single. Like, I guess it'll only affect her. And she was crying, saying like, oh, this is gonna, be for every black woman in the world. Every black mother in the world is gonna, because I'm doing bankrupt, blah, blah, blah. And I'm supposed to be up. Like, Pinky, whether you up or you down, you sideways, you look left and right. It's not gonna affect anybody. I'm a strong black woman in America. And it's not gonna affect anybody, other than yourself and your family, your immediate family, anybody you take care of. The employees will be affected because they're going to be able to get new jobs where they're actually being paid for their services, but it just kind of annoyed me with, Jesus, my neighbor, but, it just kind of annoyed me with Pinky, where she was just like, this is for every black woman. I'm like, now you trying to rally the black women? No, the black women were the women working in your establishment, sweetie. And they were already rallied, like you didn't want to actually pay them what they were worth, so, maybe the next time when you get this Lady V get back up and running, I think she do now, make sure that you're paying your employees, because you work in Atlanta, you work in HBCUs, you are in, I think Alabama as well. Make sure that the black people that work in your establishments are getting paid a fair wage and ain't got to sue you for what's theirs, But anyways, so, Drew and Black, oh, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I did not watch this shit. I did not watch it. I saw him on there and I heard a little bit of them basically just for like 5 or 10 minutes just saying like, we're not doing nothing. You just my friend. I love you. You just my friend. And I was like, when I tell you, Drew is acting down. It is a whole fucking act. It ain't a good act, but she is acting down. Okay. I see why she keep getting cast in them Tubi movies, them CGI AI Tubi movies. But I was just like, Drew, I don't understand it. I really don't understand why you're bringing this guy on here. If you gonna do anything like this, Drew, like where you're gonna be bringing a man on here and you're gonna be playing in our faces, the very least thing that you could do is have a good storyline. If you're gonna tell a tale, tell a good tale. Like, you could have had, I can't even think of nothing, but like, if you're gonna bring something fake on the show, make sure it's really good. You could have been like, I'm pregnant by this man and this other man want to be the dad, or just something like, I'm just trying to think of something, but I'm just like, anything other than this black guy. And I know that they said his name last season. That's probably why she decided to bring him on. But like, him being on the phone for like 87 hours while they were filming this show at Portia's house, that first episode, to now us actually seeing him. And I'm like, girl, it does nothing. I literally was asleep. But anyways, Angela and Amari in the next scene go to Angela's house that Charles knew nothing about, which we find out there's spiders all over this house. The house is nasty. The house is disgusting. What did it say? The buses are nasty. The buses are disgusting. The buses are filthy. We have to wait a long periodic time. But with what's her name? Yeah, Amari, she kind of is just like, girl, this house is no. And the house only costs like $150,000, the one that Angela's getting. But, she's going to have to like put money into like redoing, like fixing it up and stuff, and like her time and money and everything, because she's not going to be in there, nailing stuff to the wall and like fixing pipes and stuff. She's going to have to go outsource it. So she's going to have to pay people for it. So she's going to have to add that to the cost. And it's like, once you get done doing all of it, it's probably going to be like 400,000, like to make it livable and good and everything, 400,000. It's like, girl, we are in a recession. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're calling an official one, but prices are up. Okay. So who is going to be buying this house, Angela? I ask you. Is it a coincidence? But who is going to be buying this house, Angela? Who is going to be buying it? It really just doesn't make any sense where she's just trying to, fix this house up and sell it. Honestly, I would have thanked my lucky stars that I went into bankruptcy. I don't have to worry about these houses no more, and that or foreclosure. I don't have to worry about these houses anymore, and that I just pay off whatever I owe, or maybe she already paid it off, and then I figure out another something. But I think that Angela is just trying to be like a businesswoman and do something else outside of just being what's his name, Oakley's house wife, Charles Oakley wife. And I can respect her for that. I truly can. But I don't know. It's just not giving, Angela. I'm so sorry, sweet. I'm just so sorry. But Amari was basically clocking her mother, and she was just like, is this something that you really want to do, or do you just want to prove people wrong? I'm like, she clearly just wants to prove people wrong. And if I'm being honest, see, the thing is, if Angela were to go and get her a $40,000, $30,000, $20,000 condemned house that truly, truly had good bones, and she were to fix it up to the point where it was like $100,000, and she would do that with every single house on the damn block, you know what I mean, in like a really rough neighborhood, and like really fix it up, making it really like, that's something that could really happen, because $100,000 house, maybe somebody ain't got that, but if you fix it up from like 30,000, you sell it for 70,000 or whatever, somebody can do that. People ain't gonna be able to do a $300,000 house. It don't matter who's selling it. It could be Beyonce selling it. Girl, if I ain't got the money, I ain't got the money. But good luck to her. Anyways, so the next scene was this guy with a green beard, and I'm like, that's some ghetto shit. And he was in a office, and it was Shamia again with her tech ass. And she was having a meeting about her rum bum rum. And she had a guy named, I think it was Millionaire or something like that, or some name. And when I heard it, because I'll have to think of what it is, but when I heard it, I immediately thought of Eve, and her husband, and how many people say that her husband is a billionaire. And she's come out and said, no, he's not a billionaire. I mean, a millionaire, billionaire, who cares? But I was just thinking like, Max Millionaire, I think it was Millionaire, that was his name or something like that. But anyways, so he was supposed to be helping her out. So they're having a meeting. The guy Millionaire is just embarrassed. He just looked like he's just so ready to go, like, ooh, this is some ghetto shit, And then I'm on camera, and Shamia and her sister and her, they just twerking their ass. And Shamia is asking like, oh, well, I want to have a peach rum, and they're like, no, we don't have peaches in Grenada. I'm a Google girl. I grew up in the 2000s, so Googling smartphones and stuff, that's so normalized to me. And I'm not gonna let Shamia off because she is like 40 something, but girl, you've been in the 21st century for like 20 years, and you know how to work an iPhone. Girl, that's something easy to look up. Like that's something easy, like is like what goes into making a peach flavored liquor beverage. That would have been a Google search. Like what goes into a peach flavored liquor beverage in Grenada. Like, I just feel like her husband was 100% right, because you don't have everything that it takes to make an alcohol. Like you don't have anything to add to the company financially. You don't have everything figured out, which she clearly don't. She needs her husband. She definitely needs her husband, and she also needs her husband to tell her no. Like she needed him to tell her no, and the key part is she needed to listen to him. Like, and I'm not for those, like, you need to listen to your husband, but she definitely needs to listen to Gerald saying no and saying, like, this is not a good idea, because, as we can tell, it's not a good idea. But, she's just gonna move forward. She's not really thinking about the cost of importing and exporting and doing all this stuff. So I can just see this being a money pit. If it does work out, I'm definitely gonna buy it. I don't really drink rum. I think I drunk it like once or twice, but I would definitely buy it. Just hey, just see how it tastes. But I just don't see it even, getting on the shelves in America. But stranger things have been known to happen. So next was Pinky and her husband. Anytime that Pinky was on the screen talking, I'm gonna be honest, I might have closed my eyes. They were just talking about like her whole bankruptcy situation. I will say this: Pinky husband is fine, but something that makes him less fine is every time he opens his mouth. Like when he was saying that he had to humble Pinky, like earlier, I think on episode 2, episode 1, either one it was. I think it was episode 2. And I'm just like, oh, just shut your mouth and be a pretty face. Because he is a fine man. But, I think that what's happening is they both are restaurant owners, which is something that Pinky loves to brag about. But one restaurant is not doing so well while the other is. If they were, and I'm not even for like the whole black excellence, we ought to be blah, blah, blah. But if they were two black people, successful black people, no lawsuits, no bankruptcies, with their restaurants, and they were both doing amazing, like I think that would be sick. But for one of them to have a struggling restaurant while the other one is coming up and like being in his like seasons of wins, and like he's looking at his wife like, the hell that bitch got going on. I don't know. It's just kind of funny to me. It's actually a little bit hilarious because, or not hilarious, but it's just like, how do you even navigate that as a couple? Like, how do you even, like my wife is over there struggling, but I'm having a great couple of years. She having the worst years of her freaking life. This lady said she was in $20 million debt and he on a come up. And also, how does that work financially with y'all being married, and both being so financially tied to each other because of this marriage? Like, I wonder how that works. But she did not tell him about the bankruptcy that she's filing, but and he said, if I can help you, I can help. And she's like, that's not your problem. Or like, this isn't something for you to deal with. Girl, what the fuck? Let me tell you something, Pinky. I think only if we get divorced and the judgment has not been handed down, then it's not my problem. Like if we were already divorced. But if the judgment is handed down and we still married and you can't pay, they coming for me. So Pinky, it is my problem. That kind of like annoyed me slightly. And when I say slightly, I mean a lot, because I'm like, girl, that is his problem. Like that is something that he would have to be worried about. Like, I don't even know why you would think to say that. That's something that he's going to have to worry about. I don't know. It was just such a crazy thing to even think or say. But she was also saying that in their marriage, her husband wasn't, in their first year of marriage, they were getting a divorce or thinking about getting a divorce. So they drove up to the courthouse to get a divorce. I'm like, you got to drive up to the courthouse to get a divorce? See, I've never been married. I don't know. I thought you just go through like a lawyer. Your lawyer can file all the paperwork. But maybe they were like, we just going to dissolve this. Like, we're going to go up there together, sign everything. We're going to get it figured out. We're going to get a divorce. So maybe that was it. But honestly, I think she was just probably lying, because even the story was like, me and my husband, we got in the car. We went up to the courthouse. We were like, we're going to get a divorce. And he told me, you better not get out that car. But why the fuck was he driving you up there? Like, why would you drive me up? What? That don't make no sense. You don't want me to jump off the bridge, but you drive me over to the bridge and say, don't get out this car. You sending me mixed signals, nigga. Man. But it was just it was wild. It was wild. And I'm like, girl, you see, when they talk about horrible marriages, that's the marriages that they talk about. When they talk about people staying with each other based off of like attraction and all this stuff, because all we keep hearing from them is that they like to sleep together and stuff like that, and that they have a great sex life. But do y'all like each other, And I'm pretty sure it's hard, even if they do like each other, with one of them winning in business and in life, and then the other going through just the worst of the worst. But anyways, we'll just kind of see how their marriage unfolds. I do hope that Pinky is back for next season, because she does seem like she is good for TV. I will have to admit, even though she seems like a horrible business person, a horrible MLM. And even if it's just us watching her fail up close, look, honestly, I'm not even going to say I'm opposed to seeing that, because of the way she did those black workers. So I'm not even opposed to seeing that. But I do hope she is back, because she does seem like she's good for TV. And next was K Michelle and Portia. In this corner, we have K Michelle weighing at whatever she weighs after that ass was removed. And in this corner, we have Portia weighing in big ass teeth, new ass, and a new boob job. So K Michelle is sitting there. Portia comes in and sits down. Portia's sitting on her phone. She's like, "Oh, girl, you ain't called me. You ain't answer my calls." K Michelle's like, "You gonna sit on the phone, or you gonna actually have a conversation with me?" I knew right then she wasn't playing. So I didn't actually say that they actually had them reading when Cynthia and K Michelle and Pinky were sitting down. They actually had them, because of the tweets that K Michelle was sending out. They actually had the girls read her tweets, and I think they had Portia, because she did in this weird ass country accent. They had Cynthia, and I think they had Phaedra, but they might have had Shamia too. I don't remember, because it was a couple tweets. But K Michelle and Portia, they're sitting down, and K Michelle is kind of saying like, I'm kind of mad at you. And she's like, and Portia's like, what did I do to make Kay mad? Something that I'm noticing about Portia, I don't think that Portia is necessarily a bad friend. Stay with me. I don't think that Portia is necessarily a bad friend. Well, she is a bad friend. But I think that Portia's problem, or Portia's issue rather, is that she is very aloof. And when you say that you have an issue with her, she doesn't know how to navigate that in a way that like actually benefits the other person's feelings. Meaning that like she doesn't really care about the other person's feelings. But I don't think that it's like intentionally. I think it's a personality flaw of hers. I really do. I think that she's just one of those people where it's just like, okay, let's get it figured out, or maybe we don't get it figured out, but we're okay. If we don't get it figured out, we're okay. But because in her head it's figured out, like even going back to that first episode where Shamia is like in the confessionals going like, miming that they were having an issue, like they puffed up chest and it's a problem. And then, she goes to Portia's house, and Portia's like, yeah, we got to figure it out. Like clearly Shamia was not okay in the situation, but to Portia, it was just like, well, we had a conversation regardless and we're fine. Because I think that Portia sometimes needs everything to be fine, because if it's not okay, then like, I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is. I don't think that Portia is the best friend to have, even if she isn't like, even if she isn't doing it on purpose. She is a neglectful friend, even if it's not on purpose. And I just don't want that for K Michelle, because I genuinely like K Michelle, I like her music, but we'll get a good song out of it. We won't get no more flatlines. But they kind of like, get to an understanding, which was good. And then we'll just kind of see like what happens with the rest of the season. But overall, this was a good episode. I talked for 40 some minutes, but this was a good episode. I didn't dislike it. Phaedra and Kelly, because Kelly was not on this episode. I don't know if I said that already, but Kelly was not on this episode. But Phaedra, Kelly, and Drew, you're getting axed. Let me tell you something. Next season, I don't want them back on my screen. If Phaedra don't give nothing this season, honestly, if she do, she can still go. But if Phaedra don't give nothing, if Drew don't start giving me actually something, and if Kelly misses another episode, I don't care if she come back next one and she leave the other one. I mean, the one after that, Kelly need to go. Kelly need to be friend of. Phaedra, she don't need to be friend of, because she's not going to give anything then either. She just needs to give gone. But yeah, other than that, I really like the show. I'll be back next, probably Tuesday, and I'll give another review. So thank you. Goodbye.